This is the Tech Link Weekly Podcast, episode number 5, recorded Saturday, March 1st, 2014. This episode is sponsored by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/logic to get a free audiobook of your choice. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Tech Link Weekly Podcast. We've gone through a whole month. We did it for the entire month of February. Granted, it was a short month, but we did get 4 episodes in. Today is the first episode of a new month. March 1st to be exact. And we're definitely excited to be bringing more episodes to you. So let's go ahead and get started, get dived into what happened this week. A lot of stuff has happened, some big revelations, some order has been restored, and we learn about some security holes and the people who control our whole internet. Had a meeting this last week, and we now have stories around that and a lot more. But let's talk about, other stuff like driving while texting. Most states now have laws where you can't text and drive. Now, granted, not all of the states around here have it, but most of the states, my state included here in the great state of Washington. But we've had an interesting thing happen. These big states in general, I guess, have created laws such as California, the California Vehicle Code, where it says that you cannot be texting while driving. Well, there is a little clause in there that says that you can use it for navigation. You can use it to look at your maps. Well, a driver has beat his ticket by saying that he was using his map app in traffic and not using his cell phone in general to make a call. And in the 5th District of Court of Appeals in the state of California, that has gone through as a legal case. So this guy now has beat his traffic ticket by saying that he was using a map application, that he was, using it instead of making a call. So herein lies the problem when it comes to cell phones in cars, is that when you see somebody looking down at their cell phone, you do not know what they're doing, whether it is talking to somebody or looking at a map. Of course, there's one huge obvious way, and that's talking to the phone. You see somebody talking to the phone, you're like, hey, they're on their phone talking. Well, there's another stipulation behind that, and that is that some people may have Siri or Android's Google Now, and using the voice functionality. I know I do that in the car because who has time to type in the car while driving? I usually use Siri. I'm like, Siri, get me a map to so-and-so, and it gets me there. So herein lies the problem with this new clause that people can now start referencing, is that they could say, hey, I was just using my map app, and there's very little room there where the officer can prove that you were talking to your phone instead of using the Maps app. Now, I am all about road safety. That's why I like voice activation. That's why I kind of like these laws where it's like, don't use your phones in the car, because, you're going to start getting a lot of people who, once they start using their phones in the car, are going to be crashing. And guess who does it? It's more young people than it is old people. Granted, though, I have seen some older people that have been swerving in and out of lanes, and when I drive up next to them, guess what? They're texting. And, there's an interesting story behind this, is that, people are so afraid that they're going to get pulled over, they have their phones down in their laps. So what does that make them do? That makes them look down, away from the road. Now, if you were a smart person and you wanted to be safe while texting, you would have it more at about eye level and off to the side. So yes, you can still text and type in text, but you can also see the road out of the corner of your eye. I think that would give you a much better chance than if you were looking down at your lap and not up at traffic. But that's just me. of course. So I don't want to get too far into that. But I just wanted to talk about that. It's a double-edged sword when it comes to cell phones and cars. And I just encourage people who listen to this podcast or in general to be smart when it comes to using your cell phone and driving. I'll just leave it at that. Be smart. Well, we've learned news this past week that the Oculus Rift is kind of halting their development right now. And that is due to a certain part in the Oculus Rift that is not being made anymore. The company that makes that part is just gone. It's just gone. They can't get this part now. So Valve has come in and at a very convenient time where we learn this and learn that they are having a virtual reality prototype that is coming out. And the early speculations and looks into this VR prototype says that it is better than the Oculus Rift. Now, the Oculus Rift is pretty amazing. I've had a chance to use it, to play around with it. It's definitely a very cool thing to have and to use with like games or other virtual reality software. But, Valve now getting into this means that they're going to be probably gearing it to their Valve library, which has tons of games. So we could see, if Valve moves forward with this, we could see implementation of VR into a lot of different computers, into a lot of the Steam games as well, meaning that, VR could be the next big thing. I did say at the beginning of this year that, VR is probably going to be one of those biggest things along with wearable technology. So we'll have to see where this goes. There haven't been too many pictures or looks at what the VR prototype looks like, but, early speculations are saying that it is due to, be pretty cool. Now, kind of changing gears, talking about cool stuff for a second. As I take a sip of water, talking about cool stuff for a moment, let's talk about Netflix. I know a lot of people out there have Netflix. Now, like me and probably a ton of other people, you usually fall asleep while watching Netflix and you lose your spot. It could be a couple episodes ahead of where you should be. And you're like, oh, where did I go? How many episodes was I back? And it could be so confusing. You're like, I don't know where. Well, if you have a Fitbit, that could be changing sometime soon. This developer has done something awesome with a Fitbit that ties into Netflix. And that is that the Fitbit, when it detects that you've fallen asleep, will pause your Netflix. That's right. It's very interesting. It will basically kind of, Fitbit is really cool. I mean, I've looked at it before. I've reviewed it before. It's great. But Fitbit now has this, they've really had this for a while. They've had this tracking when you're asleep. So developer was like, hey, let's work that into Netflix. And what they've done is they've made it so that when it detects you're asleep, it will pause your Netflix. And it's like, we've detected you're asleep, so we've paused Netflix for you. That's pretty cool. I will not lie. That's pretty cool. Because I, very often find myself falling asleep while watching Netflix. Because, Netflix is one of those things where it's kind of, you can just sit there and watch episode after episode after episode if you're watching a TV show or if you're watching a movie. So I think that's a kind of cool thing. Don't know how far it'll go in the grand scheme of things, but it's a nice work with Fitbit and Netflix that they've worked into each other to tie into each other. I definitely think it's super cool. And something else that's not super cool, if you own a Mac, is they're dropping Snow Leopard support. You like that segue? That wasn't a segue at all, but let's talk about Snow Leopard. A lot of you guys know that Apple comes out on a pretty regular basis of software updates, probably about once a year, compared to Microsoft, which is about once every 4 or 5 years. Well, Snow Leopard, which is a couple generations behind, I think it's like 4 generations behind, I want to say, is now dropping support. It's 10.6. We're at 10.9 now. So they're dropping support, and apparently that's going to leave 1 in 5 Macs vulnerable to, oncoming attacks because, Apple will stop supporting what Snow Leopard has. So that's something to be wary of. And I am not saying, and people certainly should not be saying, that you don't get viruses from, Macs, because Macs do get viruses. Do not be one of those people that says, I own a Mac, so I get no viruses. So ha 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 ha. No, that is not the case. Every system out there is susceptible, no matter what. So if you own a computer that has Snow Leopard on it and it has sensitive stuff on it, you might want to think about upgrading it or locking down the machine. I mean, you can always get virus scanners. You can always get malware detectors on, Apple's computers. So, you might need to pick up something like that to keep yourself nice and safe. And, on the opposite spectrum of things, talking about computers, of course, we have Macs, but what about Windows? They were in the news this week. One of the biggest things that people are saying is that, well, PCs are dying out. Nobody wants to buy a PC anymore. It's all going to be mobile users. Well, that's not the case. According to a lot of people out there called Stat Counter, which has a lot of global data that they take in. Yes, I will say that it is on the rise. Mobile is on the rise, yes, but I don't think it's going to completely 100% wipe out desktop technology. It's not going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. And we're actually having a look on desktop and PCs growing rather than shrinking when it comes to what people are using them for nowadays. A lot of people are moving off consoles. I will admit I do have an Xbox One, yes, but I also have a PC that I played tons of Steam games on. I think I have like 170 Steam games. It's getting insane for how much I have. But, moving on from that, you got to think about it. A lot of stuff is done nowadays. Have you tried coding? Have you tried typing on a non-keyboarded screen? It's just it's one of those kind of hut and peck. It's hard and it gets tough because it's a hard surface you're typing on. There's no give to it. So, your fingertips are going to get, pretty bad. I mean, when I was traveling once, I only had an iPad mini with me. I'm sitting there typing on it. My fingers were starting to hurt because, you're just typing on a hard surface and that's it. Whereas with a keyboard, you have the give to it, which I think is much better than mobile. So I won't say that mobile won't take over PCs. I just won't say that PCs are dying. No, it's not going to happen. Yes, mobile may overtake PCs, but I don't think the PCs are going to be declining at a very rapid pace, which a lot of people are claiming is going to happen. So we'll have to see where that takes us in the future, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, nobody wants PCs anymore. I say BS. I think tons of people want PCs. And I'm going to take another drink of water. Because I have to talk and talk and talk. Mouth gets dry. Talking about game consoles, by the way. Let's talk about Nintendo. That's one of my favorite things is Nintendo. The old systems, by the way, not the newer systems, the older systems, such as the Nintendo 64. I love the Nintendo 64. That thing comes out every holiday. It's 20 years old now, I want to say. And I'm still using it. It still works fantastically. It hasn't broken. I have thrown it around a couple times, but it hasn't broken. I love the Nintendo 64, and Mario Kart Racing is the game to play if you have an N64. And I encourage everybody, new, old, young, old, to get an N64. I mean, they're relatively cheap. Pick them up for like $20, $10-$20, and get Mario Kart. That is the most fun you will ever have with video games, ever. I guarantee it. Well, anyways, let's continue talking about Nintendo. They have more modern consoles now, of course, the DS and the Wii. Well, it seems like Nintendo isn't having any luck with their online service. Not a lot of people want their online services for the DS and the Wii. So, as of the May 20th of this year, they will be cutting that off. So those of you who may play the Wii online, just watch out. It's going down the drain. Well, actually, I won't say it's going down the drain, but they're just going to be cutting off the service. Maybe not a lot of people are using it. Maybe, the user base in there, the maintenance costs were too high. Who knows? But they are cutting it off. So you will not be able to use it anymore. And talking about usability, because everybody loves user-friendly, let's talk about Windows 8.1. Why not? Apparently, Microsoft is said to be considering a free version of Windows 8.1. My head is in my hands weeping just because Microsoft is probably going to mess this up. I can almost guarantee it. I can almost guarantee to you that Microsoft will mess it up if they bring out a free version of Windows 8.1, just because they're probably going to load it to the top with ads. They're probably going to get, third-party software that gets installed with it. Like, when you buy computers nowadays, if you don't build it yourself, you get all this bloatware. It's probably going to come with a ton of bloatware because Microsoft's going to say, well, we want to be compensated because what does Windows 8.1 cost? About $250, right? Yeah. Well, I'm just shaking my head. I'm literally shaking my head right now. I just don't think it's a good idea. And we'll see how Microsoft decides to execute this. And we'll see how it works out. We'll probably even take a look at it too if they do bring it out, and we'll see how it differs from Windows 8.1. Because I have Windows 8.1, although I actually still use Windows 7 because I think it's much better. So we'll see how Microsoft manufactures that. And talking about manufacturing, because I'm so good with segues like that, let's talk about Tesla. Why not? It's the electric car company that everybody loves, except car makers who are lobbying to get to get them ousted because they want to sell direct to consumers. And this isn't the story that I want to talk about, but I want to briefly touch on what Tesla's wanting to do. They want to sell directly to the customer. Nowadays, when you buy a car, you're not getting sold a car directly from Honda or Ford or Chevy. No, what is happening is that these dealers have already bought these cars. The cars they already own. They've bought them from the manufacturer, and then they sell it to you for an upmarket price because, well, they can make some money off of it. Sounds great, right? Well, no, because the consumer usually gets the butt end of everything. Because depending on the dealer may, be a little bit sleazy. They could upmarket so much that it, almost doubles the price of a car. Who knows? Well, Tesla wants to do this great thing, and that is sell directly to you. And to bring more of an incentive to this and to show that they're giving back, Tesla has said that they're going to build their battery factory here in the U.S. And they're going to employ people in the U.S. to build the batteries for these cars. And that's pretty cool because not only does Tesla start making an impact on local economies, they're giving back to the community, to the U.S., when it comes to bringing jobs in, to selling cars. And this could be an amazing step for them because they might gain local support all around the country for these laws that are trying to get passed, saying that they can't sell directly to consumers. This might be the tipping point to allow them to sell directly to consumers. But we'll have to see as time moves on. Talking about time. When you're a college student, a lot of your time goes into reading research papers, to reading academia papers, trying to find credible sources, trying to find, all of this stuff. But this interesting article from The Guardian talks about how there's a lot of computer-generated fake papers out there, and it's flooding the market. And when I say flooding the market, I mean flooding the market with these fake papers that people are, students are starting to cite, that they're starting to, give as real information. These papers are just no more than computer-generated jumble of nothing. So when it comes to, being a student, you got to check your sources. You got to check if the papers are real. And that's, it's going to be one of the hardest thing nowadays to get that, because it's going to come in the fact that you got to be very knowledgeable already about the subject you're trying to look up. And, that might not work out so well. But in a completely unrelated segue, let's talk about a story that we had talked about earlier. And this story was about the Twitter handle of N. That's right. Just the Twitter handle of just N. I think it was the first episode that we talked about it, where this guy was basically held for ransom for his Twitter handle, which was just N. And, this hacker had a lot of his personal information, was able to use social engineering to steal this guy's information to basically hold everything ransom, his domains, his PayPal account. And, it didn't turn out so well for him. He did end up having to give up his domain name, or his Twitter handle. But Twitter, being the awesome person they are, was able to work with Nakoi Hiroshima and get his Twitter handle back. So this week, he tweeted out, "Order has been restored," and his Twitter handle is back in the right hands where it apparently belongs. So, that was a short-lived ransom of a Twitter handle, and it's now back in the hands of the rightful person that it belongs to. So, awesome. It tells you a lot about, internet security. And internet security is one of those big things that people talk about. And one of the biggest questions that a lot of people talk about is, what is the centralized security of the internet? How do we protect the essence of the internet? That's one of the biggest questions that people have asked. Well, we now have a nice in-depth answer to this. And it comes in the form of the Guardian article, which talks about the 7 people who hold the keys to the worldwide internet security. And I'm not joking, they're actual keys. And basically what it is it's representatives from a lot of the major countries, including Japan, the US, I think Australia, Great Britain is in there. What else do we have here? It's just, a collection of countries. I believe 14 countries to be exact. They hold these keys. These keys gain you access to a safe. These safes, there are actually multiple safes, hold the key to changing the primary crypto key for the internet. So if these keys, all 14 of them, were to fall in the wrong hands, somebody could take these keys, go to the safety deposit box, and change the security key to the internet. Scary, right? Well, yeah, it's really scary. But they've got a lot of things that they've put safeguards in. Like there are multiple safes. You have to have the actual keys. If any of the safes are slammed or tried to opened without the keys, they automatically just lock down and lock themselves. They're inside of a cage that is locked. If it has any security breaches, the cage locks itself. The safes lock themselves. There is intense security around it. And these people meet 4 times a year. 2 times on the West Coast, 2 times on the East Coast. Just to kind of, update what's happening throughout the internet. So, it's actually a pretty interesting article, and I'm going to have to ask you to go read it because it's a quite interesting article to see how the internet can be changed. If 14 people were to come into the place have their keys stolen, have their, security stuff stolen. The internet could just go and that's it. And I'm not making that up. The internet can go in just like 2 minutes. I'm not joking. So watch yourselves, people. Make sure you keep the right friends, as I might say. And keeping the right friends, our lovely friends over at Microsoft are dropping Windows XP support. The world's greatest operating system is finally coming to a close in a way. And that is that Microsoft is not going to be providing any more security updates for Windows XP. They've already extended it, and now it's time to say we're done. So this article that we have from ZDNet kind of just talks about really locking down your system, what to expect. We're going to see a lot of computers getting, vulnerabilities because, well, XP is still, even with Windows 7 out there, Windows 7 is still a very popular. Did I say Windows 7? I meant Windows XP. Windows XP is still a very popular program out there, and a lot of computers still run it. So just, watch yourselves. Just saying. And of course, watching ourselves, let's talk about something that's, something that we think about on a daily basis and, kind of think about what's going to happen. And that is, we have what? Is it 7 or 8 billion people on this earth? I think it's like 8 billion, something, 7.5, 8 billion, whatever. Not a lot of those people have cell phones. Cell phones run our lives nowadays when it comes to communicating, when it comes to people, having lives, talking with people. We all have cell phones. Even the most basic of cell phones. We still have cell phones. But what about those people who don't have cell phones, who can't have access to cell phones? Well, Google is trying to do something about that. They released something called Project Aura. Project Aura is about giving cell phones to those about 6 billion people who don't have cell phones or can't afford cell phones. And Project Aura is going to be what looks to be a very low, even free cost cell phone for people to start communicating with each other. And they're going to be holding a conference April 15th, 16th of this year on the web to kind of talk about where this is going to go, how they're going to enact this event. And it's quite interesting to see where Google might take this when it comes to what's going to be out there, how they're going to distribute it. So keep an eye. Project Aura. Now, talking about stuff that we all own, most of us, I would think, use Amazon. At least once in our lives, we've used Amazon. Whether your experience is good, whether it is bad. Amazon does have a premium service called Prime. I am a lover of Prime because you get free 2-day shipping for $80 a year. And depending on how much you buy from Amazon, which, mine is a lot, you can actually save money off of shipping. It's pretty cool. Well, Amazon has been looking to expand what Prime offers. We already have access to the Prime video library, which gives you access to tons of TV shows and movies for free. Well, they're looking to expand it even more. And this is going to be an interesting one. Amazon is said to be in talks to becoming a music streaming service, like Pandora, like Spotify, to offer that to Prime users. So along with your $80 a month, or $80 a year, sorry, not $80 a month, $80 a year, you might also get a streaming service along with it. And that would be fantastic because you know what? I just canceled my Spotify service. And why did I do that? Well, Spotify's great. And I paid for it just because I like to listen to music on my phone. But, that's $10. And listening to music on my phone, paying $10 a month, didn't seem all worth it to me. So I canceled it. But, something that's bundled in with something that I already use, that'd be great. So we'll see how Amazon takes this out. That's one of the biggest and hardest things to do nowadays is get into the music streaming service, because you have to make deals with all of these record labels, and all these record labels want more and more and more and more and more and more and more money. That's what they want. Just want tons of money. So you've got to come to an agreement with them that, doesn't happen to break the bank when it comes to music streaming. So we'll have to see where that goes. Now, let's talk about developing for a second. If you're a developer, you might want to listen to this next story, because you might be very interested in what this is. This is Project Atom, which has been released by the people who make GitHub. They have created Project Atom, which is a text editor that is supposed to be geared towards those who are developers, to allow you to develop with one simple, customizable place to go, to edit your code, to do all of this stuff. And it's using 80 open sourced libraries and packages for their editors. So you can use, everything under the sun, depending on what you're coding with. It's pretty cool. You might want to check it out for yourself, because they just released it. So, have fun. These packages, it looks like you have to work to get. They don't have a simple one-step installer. But if you're a developer, you usually know about this stuff. So go check it out. It's called Project Atom by GitHub. Seems pretty cool. Well, it comes time to the end of the show. Let's talk about one more thing, and that is Apple. Let's talk about how secure iMessage really is, because I am one of those people who uses iMessage all the time. I mean, all the time. I text, clients, I text friends, family, I use iMessage. And a lot of discussion has come up recently on how secure it actually is. So Apple has laid out how secure it actually is. And they've created a step-by-step guide on what happens when you send and receive messages, how everything works. So here's a simple terms of how it works. When you first enable iMessage, your device creates two sets of keys, a public key and a private key. One set is for encrypting data, and one set is for signing data. And signing data just means, you're verifying it's from the device. And how that works and helps protect you is that, if these keys ever don't match up when you're decrypting or encrypting information and signing data, if they don't ever match up on the other end, well, Apple can see that there's something wrong there, and some people are trying to, do some naughty things. So the public key is sent to Apple. The private key is always stored on the device, never sent to Apple. So Apple can never really decode your messages, because it's that private key is what it uses to encrypt all of those messages sent to and from devices. So Apple has no access to that key. But the public key, Apple servers have. And that's so that they can make sure that when you're sending messages, that this public key is verifying it's you. So let's, set this out in more simple terms. Your private key is like your underwear. You usually don't want people to know what your underwear looks like, but you put on your underwear anyways. And then your public key is like your clothes, your everyday clothes, your pants, your shirt. It's what people can see. And your underwear is what people can't see. So basically, Apple can see your shirt and your pants and your shoes and your socks, but they can't see your underwear. I know it's a really weird explanation, but that's the best explanation that I can give for somebody who might not know what all this is. So, when someone starts a message conversation with you, then what their device does is that it fetches the public key from the Apple server. So it makes sure that it's encrypted with your public key so that it knows on the other end that it's from the person and it's been verified that it's been sending to the person. So when it arrives on the device, the private key is set to decrypt the message. And how that works is that this, encryption is decrypted with this private key because of a commonality with iMessage and the encryption, but doesn't work if it doesn't have your private key. So hopefully that makes sense. So now let's move on. What is not encrypted? Because Apple's saying that everything is encrypted. Well, what's not encrypted is usually the timestamp and the routing data for the message. Those are the only things that aren't encrypted by Apple data. And that's totally fine with me because, great, you can see I sent a message at this time, but what did I send? You don't know because you don't have my private key. So, all of this data is encrypted individually and, it's sent off around the message universe. So even though Apple has been having a lot of security scares recently, just be aware that iMessage takes great lengths to keep your data safe. And that's why I still use Apple to this day. Because Apple is very, concerned about private security and data and not stealing it like somebody else out there. I won't name names, but you know who it is. Anyways, there you guys go. That's our stories for this week. I'm sorry for my rambling ons about security. It's just an interesting thing, and we all have to be more security conscious when it comes to our data online, especially now in our ever-evolving future. So without further ado, though, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. You guys can download this episode and our recent episodes over at our website, LogicLounge.com. Click on the podcast drop-down and click Tech Link Weekly. That'll take you off where you can download all these episodes for yourselves. So thank you guys so much for watching. Before we go, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Audible. The company out there that allows you to listen to hundreds of thousands of audiobooks. Now I can go on and on about different audiobooks out there, but I'd like to thank Audible for being a great sponsor of this podcast. If you want to get a free audiobook for yourself, no matter what, no matter if you decide to keep the service, no matter if you like to cancel the service, that audiobook will be yours to keep, no matter what, by using our code. Go to audibletrial.com. Use the promo code LOGIC. audibletrial.com/logic. It will autofill it for you. That will bring you to sign up for the Audible service. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to go visit audibletrial.com/logic. That's audibletrial.com/logic to get your free audiobook for yourself. Thank you to Audible once again for being a gracious sponsor. I definitely use Audible on a daily basis to listen to books, and you should too. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you guys in our next podcast.